Hey y'all, it's Fortune Frankly and welcome back to my channel. Or just welcome if you're new here. So the last time I went outside, which was about a week ago, to get groceries, I made a stop at the Dollar Tree because I love to get my snacks from the Dollar Tree. Love to get my snacks. The Dollar Tree that's nearby me is actually really big, and they have a lot of stuff that I don't see at like every single Dollar Tree, but I noticed that they have art canvases. And now that I think about it, at a couple of Dollar Trees, I've seen that they've like expanded their arts and crafts section. So these canvases seem to be part of like that expansion pack. And I was like, wow, we can totally do something with this. We can do like a dollar store project with this. So that's what I did. So I've been wanting to do a gallery wall in my room. There's a particular wall that's just empty. There's nothing on it, although it's like where my dresser sits and my TV sits on top of it. So it's just against the wall, but there's nothing, like no decoration behind it. It's super plain. So I was like, let's do a little mini gallery wall with canvases here instead of going and buying frames, because frames are super expensive, which I did not learn until I was like an adult that wanted to decorate something. So you might be able to tell that all the canvases I painted are around the same kind of color scheme. And that's because my room where these will be going is mint and white, or like a turquoisey kind of color and white. Hence the outfit today and the makeup. Okay, come through. So I wanted to do everything within that color scheme so that it all goes with the decor in my room. But of course, you can do these in any color that you want, and I'm sure it'll look great. No shade, no tea. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make 5, or technically it's 6 different types of like art prints or painting variations of canvases in different sizes and using some different materials. And all the things I used, I will link in the description bar below. And with that, let's get started painting some canvases. So I didn't use all the canvases in this video, but I did pick up multiples of each size. I got 2 11x14 flat canvases, 2 8x10 flat canvases, 2 6x8 stretch canvases, and 2 4x6 stretch canvases. So starting with the first canvas, you'll need a canvas, some paint, paint brushes, somewhere to mix your paint, some jute cord, a hot glue gun, and some glue sticks. So I'm just covering my table so that paint doesn't get everywhere. And I'm gonna take my canvas and some paint that I already started mixing. I'm aiming for a light minty blue kind of color. And I'm just gonna paint horizontally first and then vertically so I can get into all the little nooks and crannies of the canvas because it's not a flat surface. And we're just gonna paint this whole canvas one solid color. Make sure you get the sides of the canvas too. So I let the canvas dry overnight, and now we're ready to start sketching out a line drawing. And I just kind of look for inspo online, and I like a basic kind of line drawing. So we're just going to sketch that out. Don't worry if you make mistakes, we're going to cover it up later. After you're finished with your sketch, we're ready to put the jute cord on. So we're going to be gluing this down along our sketch lines, and I would suggest going in really small increments of hot glue until you feel comfortable. because the hot glue can get a little messy. Don't worry, we're going to clean that up later, but just to prevent too much mess, it's easier to do little by little. And when we finish, we're just going to snip off the end here, make sure that's glued down and looking good. Now to get rid of some of that hot glue messiness, or I guess you can call it a hot mess, I'm just rubbing along the edges so that the glue kind of rubs off. And I did try to go in with some tools to remove that, but it didn't work out too well. Next, we're going to go in with some paint. I wanted the jute cord to pop out a little bit more than it was, so I decided to paint it white. And this actually gives the cord some texture, which you'll see in some close-ups. But I went in with a fairly flat brush, although it's a small brush, to go over the top of the cord, and with a small detailing brush to go onto the sides of the cord to make sure I got every piece that was showing. And here's the finished canvas. For this next project, you're going to need a canvas, some paint, paintbrushes, Mod Podge, and some crushed glass. Again, we're gonna cover our surfaces, make sure paint doesn't get on it, and we're ready to start with our canvas. So this one I'm also going to be painting a base color on it, and I'm just looking for a lighter mint color than the first canvas we painted, and I'm just going to paint the canvas completely. Don't forget the sides. So after letting the paint dry overnight, we're ready to put our embellishments. This part is super simple. You're just gonna spread Mod Podge over the entire canvas. I did it like in 2 halves, but I recommend doing the whole thing at once. But you're just gonna spread this on in an even layer, as even as you can get it. And we're gonna sprinkle some of the glass rocks on top of that. And once you've got a good layer of the rocks on top, you can pat them down, sprinkle them out, and repeat the process. Now that was the first layer of the rocks that we're gonna do. Next, we're going to kind of go in with a more detailed brush and fill in all the gaps that we see. So I'm just taking my paintbrush, putting it in some Mod Podge, and sprinkling some rocks over when I've finished filling the holes. And I did this a couple of times, but you want to let your Mod Podge dry at least 15 to 20 minutes in between doing these like filler pieces. And here's the finished look. For these next 2 canvases, I only used 2 small canvases, paint brushes, and some paint. This canvas, I wanted it to have a white base just so that there's not too much color on the wall, and I'm just gonna paint it like we've done the other canvases. So So I thought a light like splattering of color would just give this some interest without making it too busy. I'm mixing a lighter mint kind of color and taking a big fluffy brush and spraying it onto this canvas. So for my second small canvas, we're going to be doing an ombre kind of look. And I'm actually taking the paint from the previous canvas that we did just so that none of it is wasted, and making two other colors that are adjacent to it. And I would say about 2 shades lighter and 2 shades darker. Once you have 3 colors that you like, you're ready to start painting. I'm just going to take the lightest color and paint the entire canvas that color, just so we have an even paint layer to work with. So for my second color, I'm just going to paint it on in the middle. Don't worry about blending, we will deal with it later, but right now we just want to get the paint on the canvas. I'm going to go back into my first color and just lay that color down onto the line that we have, both vertically and horizontally, to kind of finesse that edge. And I'm going to take the second paint color, do the same kind of thing, and go back and forth between the adjacent colors so that you have a nice blend. And these are how the 2 canvases came out. So for the 5th and final project, you'll need a canvas, paint, paintbrushes, and some resin. We're going to protect the space. You already know. So I'm gonna just mix some new paint colors to give us some variety, because we all know variety is the spice of life. And when we're ready, we're gonna draw just general shapes of a geode. You can definitely look up some reference pictures, but right now we're just gonna put down general shapes, general outlines throughout the entire canvas. So I'm just mixing colors as I go. I'm looking for what looks right together, what colors look right next to each other, what's the general vibe that I'm getting. There's not too much rhyme or reason for this. You just have to go with what looks good, and if you make a mistake, you can really always paint over it. So I'm gonna go with a thick, really thick brush over here and just paint again those general shapes. We're gonna start putting colors next to each other just to see how it goes, but it's looking cute. Now we want to work on blending as you're putting colors down. You can still do this at a later point. I just started doing this now, but as you're laying colors next to each other, you want to stipple the colors on so that the line of demarcation between the colors you put together isn't super stark. and this will just help with blending later on. A good tip here to get a really nice blend is to go back and forth with those two adjacent colors, just kind of layering the colors on so that they blend in the middle. Another thing too you want to keep in mind is the general kind of color scheme of a geode is to go from light in the center to a darker color up to a certain point, and then that color scheme kind of restarts again. So you don't want it just to go from light to dark across your canvas, but from light to dark and then from light to dark again. So once you've stippled your heart out and your hand is tired, you can take some gold paint, and this will really bring this geode to life. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but it's gonna look amazing with this gold detailing. So I would be cautious if you're spraying this into a plastic cup. The spray paint actually just like eats up the plastic of the cup, and eventually this ate through my cup, it ate through my plastic, almost got my table, but I saved it. So we're just gonna go in with this gold paint. It's actually a bronzy kind of color, and we're gonna trace kind of some outlines of some of the lines in between where we stippled, and we're just gonna add some gold accents. Keep in mind here, you don't want your lines to be too straight. I kind of started with some straight lines, but eventually we want to go over the curves that the stippling motion leaves so that this doesn't look too perfect. After we've let that paint dry, we're ready for our resin. Resin comes in two parts. Part A is the resin and part B is the hardener that'll actually make it solid when you touch it. So I'm just going to pour those two parts together. They're a 1-to-1 ratio, and mix it up. Now we're ready for the pour. I just poured the resin in the middle and let it spread out. Resin as a material is self-leveling, so this will create an even layer for you without you having to do much work. So just let it be free. So as you're letting your resin spread, you'll see that there are a lot of air bubbles, which comes from mixing the resin. And you might not be able to see them here, but there are a lot. And we're just going to use a lighter to actually heat those bubbles up so that they burst and our air bubbles are gone. And as I'm going along here, I'm going to help the resin move to the edges of the canvas. And I'm going to mix a little bit more so that I have enough to cover the entire thing. And it's time to reveal the magical geode. So this is the wall I want to put the canvases on. There's my dresser and my TV, but as you can see, like there's nothing on the wall right there. and I'm just trying to configure the canvases. So I laid the canvases out on the bed. I think I'm gonna hang it up like this. I don't want like the bigger ones to be in the middle, or I don't really want anything to be in the middle. I just want them like kind of evenly spread out. So I think this works for me. I like that the white is kind of centered here so that it gives us like a break between the blues. And I'm gonna be hanging them up with like these little command strips. Hopefully I have enough, because there is no going out and getting any more. So I organized them a little bit differently than I had initially thought. I like this configuration, and I actually have more canvases, so I might do some more things and put them on the top there, but I like how it came out so far. A little note for this one in particular, some of them fell out while I was putting it up, which I kind of anticipated, so if you want to avoid that, you can maybe put some resin over it or something to seal it so it doesn't fall out, but it wasn't too bad and I was able to just kind of patch it up, but it still looks good. So here's how the finished product looks. Okay, so I would say that came out pretty well. Like, that came out really good. I love the geode. That's probably my favorite one out of all the ones that I did today. And I was super surprised at how good it came out. I honestly have never done something like that one before, and this was like the first time that I used resin in that way. And I was not sure how it was gonna look like. It did take me some time, but it came out really, really good. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, do all the things, all the things. And again, thank you so much for watching.